Hey, hello, welcome. This is Matt here with Dylan, and today we're going to be doing a little reaction for the nominations for this year's Independent Spirits Awards, which is it's a little wild, this lineup right here. So we're going to get right into the Independent Spirit Awards with the Best Feature lineup, starting from the biggest award and going down. But before that, Indie Spirits, do they matter? Dylan, do the indie spirits matter? Do you think they matter?
See, I used to think no, but the last few years they've been showing more and more that they do matter. Because last year, if I remember correctly, this was the start of the Troy Kotzer sweep, where he started to rise up and started to get actual awards. Because he was nominated at some places, but he hadn't really won anything. And once he won this, people were like, oh, we can actually give him the award. We don't have to give it to Cody everywhere. And Troy kept rising and rising until winning the Oscar. So I think the independent spirits are really showing that, hey, people look at us, they take what we do, and they like interpret it. Because like last year, there was a lot of interesting nominations. Like the Lost Daughter like swept, and it didn't actually go on to do anything to completely counteract my point. But stuff like Troy happened, and that's at least something to look at. So maybe overall, this doesn't really matter, but for some specific categories, I think it really does. It shows that it's okay to vote for some people that may be against the grain. But just look at the nominees here. We have some really good ones. Does anything really stick out to you in Best Feature?
Well, with Best Feature, it's actually really cool because last year there were no films that were, contending for Best Picture in there. This year we've got 3 of them. And I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago, but there was a span of years between 2011 till I think 2017 where every single year it was like a Best Picture showdown at the Indie Spirit Awards, and usually the one that was closer to winning Best Picture would win here. Like, we had The Artist win, we had Silver Linings Playbook, 12 Years a Slave, Birdman won over Boyhood, which those were the 2 frontrunners for the Oscar. So really here, we might have a bit of a Best Picture preview. So this year in the Best Feature category, we've got Bones and All, which I'm sure you're incredibly happy about there.
Whoop.
We got Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a fantastic nomination right here. Then a really interesting one. I have never heard of this film before. This is its only nomination. Our Father, the Devil. I love when these types of awards kind of introduce new things to me, but this one has caused some crazy snubs. There are some other films that are not here that it's kind of wild that this film's in instead of them. Then we got Tar, and finally Women Talking. So of these 5, we've got 3 probable Best Picture nominees right here. Everything Everywhere, Tar, Women Talking. But what got left out here? Because we're missing After Sun, we're missing The Whale, we're missing Till. I don't know what else was eligible for the Indie Spirits. Actually, let me check my list of like Best Picture and see what missed here that like should have been here.
At least looking at some other nominees, some ones that really stick out are The Inspection, because I got nominated at some other places across the board. Causeway. Are these ones that are really competing for Best Picture at the Oscars? Not so much, but for some of these little indie awards, yeah, those are ones you would think would pop up in Best Feature over, like you mentioned, Our Father, the Devil, that only got 1 nominee. For Best Feature, but like you said, we got 3 Best Picture contenders, 1 Best Picture for Hopeful and Bones and All. Do I think that's getting in? Not really, but it's I think solidly in that like 20 to 25 range, where it's down there. Is it actually in there? No, but it's around. But I think what's really interesting here is there's 3 very distinctive routes they can go that, like we just mentioned with Troy Kotzer, could be like the start of something, but also could be a complete like throw off, like last year was with The Lost Daughter, where they pick something that doesn't really equate to anything. Because like, yes, they could go with Everything Everywhere, and that could be like, okay, this is cool to vote for, we should start voting for this. But it also could be like, oh, we've done that, this movie's still a little bit too weird, kind of like The Lost Daughter was for some people last year, and it doesn't end up going all the way. Do I think that will happen? Probably not. But I think Everything Everywhere is safe for a Best Picture nomination. Just that win is what so many people are like, is it there, is it not, can this connect with people of all demographics? And right now it looks like it's really hitting the younger demographic. The older demographics not quite there yet, which they are hitting with Women Talking.
Interesting. But okay, here's the thing about the voting demographic of the Independent Spirit Awards. So the Independent Spirit Awards, I don't know who chooses the nominations. I have no clue who does, because I know it's not Film Independent at large. But Film Independent is an organization where essentially anyone can sign up, pay a membership fee and vote on these. Like, we have people in our Discord server who actively vote on the Independent Spirit Awards. These are largely Stan Awards, and the film that is the most stand is the film that is going to go the furthest here. So when we look at this Best Feature category, I think really this comes down to two. It's going to be Everything Everywhere versus Tar, but I think that the rabidness of the fans of Everything Everywhere All at Once is going to make it win. It would be my choice for this category, and I think that it's going to win. I think it's going to absolutely bulldozer these awards. It's going to win almost every category that it's nominated in, personally. But what do you think's winning here?
See, if it's a Stan Award for me, it's Bones and All. I also agree that it's probably Everything Everywhere, but I could see an off chance that Tar does surprise, because Tar did show up pretty much across the board with everything it could have got. And both those movies, in fact, did get Best Director nominations. So Todd Field and Tar, the Daniels for Everything Everywhere All at Once. You got Koganagawa for After Yang, Sarah Polley for Women Talking, and then Helena Rajan for Bodies, 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 which to me is a very inspired and just great pick here. If you're talking about stands, I didn't know stands existed for this movie, but if there was a stand, it would be me.
That's such an interesting nomination. I would have never thought to nominate her for this film here, but when I think about it, I'm like, she did a lot of interesting things, especially just in the blocking of that film, the lighting of that film, with 90% of it being in darkness. And that's so, like, she did some really cool stuff there. And while I might not love the film personally, I have no problem with her being here, even over some of the other people that maybe were more expected to show up here. But overall, I mean, I maintain the same thing. I think Daniels are winning this. Honestly, what I'm going to say right now is if Everything Everywhere doesn't basically sweep the Indie Spirit Awards, it's not winning the Oscar. Because if it can't get enough fans and enough stands to, like, sit behind it and go, I'm picking this for everything, then I think it won't have that support with the Academy. If it can't get it here, it's not getting it anywhere else. So I think this is really going to be a show. But again, I really think Daniels takes the directing award here as well. Todd Field has a small chance for it, but I think it's Daniels or nothing. But what do you think about the directing category?
I think this one, even more so than picture, is pretty much locked up for Everything Everywhere. Like I said, in picture, I could see Tar winning. Director, no. This is so much a director's type movie that if they were going to come out in any sort of form, it's here, and they're not going to hold up here. Because, like, I could see in Best Lead Performance the stands of this movie not voting for they could vote for Blanchett or even Mia Goth and Pearl, because they're like, oh, these are other really good performances where Yo's great. She's not maybe the best, but like the people who love that movie are going to pick that for director. They're going to pick it for feature. And yeah, that's essentially how I feel. So if you're voting on Gold Derby, use this as one of your +2 points, because this is probably the easiest lock in any category.
Absolutely. It is such a lock. So for the Best Lead Performance Award, this is actually very interesting. So the categories are gender neutral. They are Best Lead, Best Supporting. And in the Best Lead Performance, we have 8 women and femme presenting performers, and we have 2 male performers in this. So we have Cate Blanchett in Tar, Dale Dickey in A Love Song, which I haven't seen, but I love Dale Dickey, so I'm happy that she is here. Mia Goth, Pearl, Regina Hall, Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul, Paul Mescal, After Sun, Aubrey Plaza, Emily the Criminal, Jeremy Pope, The Inspection, Taylor Russell, Bones and All, Andrea Riseborough, To Leslie, which I've also heard is fantastic, and Michelle Yeoh, Everything Everywhere All at Once. So in this category, my personal favorite, and I want to do a full discussion on this later on, because I've seen a lot of people and a lot of discussion on the internet with people saying that a win for Cate Blanchett would be merit-based, and a win for Michelle Yeoh would be, narrative-based. But I would love to, at some point, do a talk in defense of Michelle Yeoh actually being the best performance here. Because genuinely, no narrative reasons, nothing, I actually think that Michelle Yeoh delivered the best performance of the year. So, personally, she'd be my pick. But yeah, I think with this award, It's got to be Kate Blanchett that takes this one. It's got to be. And I mean, I would love to see Michelle Yeoh take it, but I think if Tar wins one award at the Indie Spirits, it's Best Actress.
See, I think, like I mentioned before, I think this is the category where even the people who are so enamored with Everything Everywhere can be like, okay, we're going to go elsewhere, because I feel like everyone, if they vote on a ballot, it kind of gets boring if you vote the same movie for everything. I'm not saying that's what every voter does, but like, I don't know. I feel like if you're going to take Everything Everywhere off of one category, this is the one to do it, because it's not going to be supporting. And Kate Blanchett is someone that a lot of people do like, and they're giving maybe their best performance ever. So that's another extra merit to be like, okay, let's give them this award. But if you had to pick a personal favorite, I haven't seen all these movies yet. Like, I haven't seen The Inspection yet. I haven't seen A Love Song yet. But my biasness wants to say Taylor Russell and Bones and all. Kate Blanchett probably gives, like you were saying, the technical best performance of the bunch, but not to win, but just a shout out, because I thought they were really good, was Regina Hall in Honk for Jesus Save Your Soul. The movie overall doesn't really work for me, but she really grounds it and brings just a lot of relatability and just clarity to the role that really helps elevate the source material.
I haven't seen that one. I really want to see that one, especially seeing it show up at the these indie nominations over and over. It's really exciting to see awards like this kind of go out of their way to pick some films that are a little unexpected, because they could have so easily done the expected thing here, nominated Frasier, nominated Deadweiler. They didn't do that, and ultimately I think that the category is much more interesting for it. So honestly, I'm very happy with that lineup right there. But now we've got Best Supporting, and this one equally crazy, and I feel a little vindicated because I've been predicting Jamie Lee Curtis, Everything Ever All at Once, all year long, and she's here. We've also got Brian Tyree Henry in Causeway, Nina Hoss. Oh, actually, that's another thing to mention. Jennifer Lawrence didn't make lead. So anyways, Nina Hoss, Tar, Brian Darcy James, The Cathedral, Ke Huy Quan, Everything Ever All at Once. I wonder who's winning this category. Trevante Rhodes, Bruiser. Theo Rossi, Emily the Criminal. Mark Rylance, Bones and All. Great nomination. Jonathan Tucker, Palm Trees and Power Lines. Another fantastic nomination right here. And Gabrielle Union, The Inspection. What do you think about this category?
I think this is the best category.
Stand here.
Yeah, I think this is the best category here. Even though I haven't seen Causeway, I love Brian Tyree Henry. All I've heard is raves for him in that performance and that role. Yeah. If you're new here to the show, to the podcast, to the YouTube channel, Matt has been saying Jamie Lee Curtis is the push here, just because of the narrative that she has and how people want to see her on the stage. Kind of like how it was with Coda last year. And like he mentioned, right here, showing up. Curtis is here, Sue's not. They both could have been here. They could have had 3 supporting performances from this movie, but they didn't. And like you mentioned, Mark Rylance, Bones and All. Life is never dully with Sully. And in a perfect world, Mark Rylance. This could be a hot take for some people, but in a perfect world, Mark Rylance sweeps the season. But that's not going to happen.
What?
Hey. I love when Mark Rylance does Mark Rylance things. In my personal predictions for the year, he's my number 1 supporting. He's my number 4 in Best Actor for Phantom of the Open. And last year, he made my 5 for Don't Look Up. I think he's probably the best part of Don't Look Up. But that's a discussion for another day. This lineup, I think, is really good top to bottom. There's a few movies in there I haven't seen, but even the ones I haven't seen, all I've heard is praise, whether it's for Darcy James in The Cathedral or, like I mentioned before, Tyree Henry in Causeway. Really good category, but pretty easy win here for Ke Huy Quan and Everything Ever All at Once.
The thing to mention as well about Stephanie Sue not being here is that a lot of people have said because she's in Breakthrough, she's not eligible here, but it actually doesn't go that way. The way that it works, from my understanding, is that if you don't make the cutoff for the top 10 in each performance category, then you're eligible for the Breakthrough category. So Stephanie Sue just didn't make it. And in terms of Jamie Lee Curtis, I've been arguing about this all year long with people saying Stephanie Sue. Yes, Stephanie Sue is the better performance in Everything Ever All at Once. However, Stephanie Sue is young. Stephanie Sue is playing a college-age student, a daughter. She's playing someone who our demographic, we can relate to. We get a lot out of, and a lot of these predictors that we're seeing from like the Oscar expert to Film Drunk and everywhere online, our whole sphere that we're looking at really resonates with Stephanie Sue. When we actually get into the awards, the voters are going to resonate more with Jamie Lee Curtis. It's just she's doing a transformative performance. She's playing a character that has some emotional moments, and she's someone that a lot of older people haven't had a chance to vote for before. So is she going to win? No, but I think she's top 5, and that's why, because she is going. That's a performance and a character that resonates with the actual demographic of the Academy more than it resonates with us. So yeah, overall, I think this is a very solid lineup, and yeah, I'm very happy with. I want to give a shout out to Jonathan Tucker, Palm Trees and Power Lines. It is a film. It's not released yet. It played at Sundance, and God, what a fucking great performance from him right there. I'm sad in the next category we have the lead actress in Palm Trees and Power Lines, and she should have been in lead. So for breakthrough performance, we've got Frankie Corio, After Sun, Garcia Filipovic, I cannot pronounce that, from Marina, which is a pretty solid film, Stephanie Sue, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Lily McInerney for Palm Trees and Power Lines, and Daniel Zolgardi for Funny Pages. I mean, personally, I think this is like another open and shut category. Just like the last one was for Kwan, this is for Sue. Stephanie Sue is going to just walk away with this win right here. I think 100%.
I'll fight back a little bit. I think the fact that she did miss supporting leaves it a little bit open, and the people who love After Sun a lot. And as we did see, After Sun did underperform across the board, but people could see that and be like, oh, After Sun got underperformed. We should still give After Sun award sort of thing. I know it has another chance later for breakthrough. Is it? There's their breakthrough first feature. Yeah, it has a chance for first feature, but I still think. Yes, Sue's probably in the lead, but I don't think it's open and shut. I think this is one of the more competitive categories where if you want to take a risk on Gold Derby, you could take Coro, have a little bit extra odds. Is it the smartest thing to do? Probably not, but I don't think it's 100% to zero. I think it's more likely for Everything Everywhere in like feature or supporting or director than it is here. I think this is its weakest category outside of lead performer.
I don't know. I'm going to push back on your pushback because, as I mentioned before, the nominating committee is not the same committee that votes. So them not putting Sue in supporting is not going to have any bearing on the people that vote. Because, like, again, we have people in our server who didn't vote on the nominations, but they're going to be voting on the wins. And those people are going to gravitate towards Sue. Especially if you look at Frankie Corio's performance. She's a cute kid. Like, she's doing a child performance. It's very subtle. There's not a whole lot going on with that character other than, the whole point of her character in After Sun is that she's blissfully unaware of the shit that's going on below the surface in this film. So it's not much of a performance, whereas Stephanie Sue is one of those performances that has that buzz. And personally, I think it's pretty undeniable that I actually would say 99% Stephanie Sue wins this award. Maybe 1% for Frankie Corio, but otherwise, I think it's open and shut. For me, that's what I'd say. Whereas in some other categories, I'd say, like, Everything Everywhere All at Once has, like, yeah, there's, like, a 20% chance it loses. With here, I think this is just absolutely closed deal. And I would say Stephanie Sue deserves the win here, too. It's not just because, yeah. So, best screenplay, After Yang, Catherine called Birdie.
Lena Dunham's unstoppable.
Everything Everywhere All at Once, Tar, Women Talking. Okay, I want to hear what you think about this, but I'm just going to say I don't think that this is a guarantee for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I would really, really, really like to see Women Talking win this.
Yeah.
I think there's a chance just because, as I've mentioned before, I think voter fatigue can be a thing. Obviously, it wasn't last year because Lost Star did sweep everywhere it could have swept, but I don't know. I feel like here is a chance to divert from the Everything Everywhere sweep. Because like we mentioned before, Tar could win lead performer. Everything Everywhere could win picture and director and supporting and breakthrough. Why not give Women Talking an award? Clearly you liked it. You nominated the whole ensemble. That's why they didn't show up before and lead or supporting. Yes. I think it would have been really interesting if they gave the ensemble award to Everything Everywhere. Which Women Talking performers would have shown up? Because I think there's a good chance that the Oscar favorites for the two supporting of Buckley and Foy and Witchall would have shown up and the supporting category. But it would have been really interesting if, not Foy, but if Mara could have shown up in lead performance. Because it's a performance that probably won't get nominated across the season just because of how stacked that lead actress category is. But award shows like this could award that. But obviously, it won the Ensemble Award, so it didn't show up in any of those categories. This is the one category I do think it has a shot to win, though.
Yeah, I agree. This is one of the only times when we're going to see Everything Everywhere go up against Women Talking in the screenplay category. So this is going to be a very interesting showdown, and I think it's one of those. I'm also leaning towards Women Talking in this category, but really, I think it could go either way. And if Everything Ever all at Once wins here, that just shows just how much people love this movie at the Indie Spirit Awards. So for Best First Screenplay, none of these are really big awards contenders, but it's a very interesting little lineup here. Bodies, 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 Emergency, which I think is a great script. It's very fun. Emily the Criminal, haven't seen it yet. Fire Island, and Palm Trees and Power Lines. I don't even know where to start with this. Maybe Bodies, Bodies, Bodies takes this?
See, that's the thing. I love Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I think I give it a very strong 8 out of 10. The script's the worst part about that movie. That's just the interesting thing for the nomination here. Like the direction, as you mentioned, is very stylized. It's very good. The editing, the performance is just the screenplay is where I feel like people who do have issues with it, it comes from there. I think this is a very open. I think it really just depends on the voter base, like you mentioned. The nomination committee is different than the voter base, so which movie can they gravitate more towards? I've heard a lot of positive stuff for Fire Island. We've seen Emily the Criminal pop up before, and Palm Trees and Power Lines show up in other categories, so I feel like anything can win here. That's not the case, though, for Best First Feature, because we have, I'll list them in opposite order. We have Palm Trees and Power Lines, Marina, The Inspection, Emily the Criminal, and our winner, because it's going to win every Best First Feature nomination in every category and every award show for After Sun.
Yeah, no, open and shut. This is one of the easiest ones. 100% After Sun takes this. It's honestly pretty mystifying that it's not in the at-large Best Feature lineup. And, we were kind of wondering, could this actually be more of a push for A24 than The Whale? Obviously not more than Everything Everywhere, but it's been faltering just a little bit. Obviously, The Whale is faltering much harder, but After Sun has also been struggling a little bit, despite having the best reviews of the year. But yeah, After Sun wins this. You already said that. It's winning that, so, we don't need to talk much more about it. Then we've got the John Cassavetes Award, which is an award given to a true indie film, because a lot of these films are like, yeah, they're indies, but they have major movie stars and they cost $25 million to make. So the John Cassavetes Award is given to the best feature made for under $1 million. And in this category, we've got The African Desperate, which I've heard very good things about, a love song. Haven't seen that either, but heard good things. The Cathedral, also haven't seen that. I've not seen any of these films. Holy Emmy, and Something in the Dirt. Now, the one film I've heard the most about here, which is why I'm gravitating towards it for the win, is Something in the Dirt. It's a sci-fi movie. It's looks very fun. Premiered at Sundance. Heard great reviews from there. But it's not the best reviewed film here. That would be either The Cathedral or A Love Song. I don't really know how to predict this category, but my gut is telling me Something in the Dirt or A Love Song. I'm gonna say A Love Song. I'll say A Love Song.
I'll be different. I'll go with The Cathedral. Also haven't seen any of the movies here, but just because, some of these movies did pop up in other categories, but The Cathedral did as well for D.R.C. James. So, and I've heard a lot of positive about his performance, so that could carry over to this category. Just be like, we want to reward you here in another way.
Yeah. The Cathedral also got a Gotham nomination for Best Feature, so that's a good case for why it could win.
I think one of the really interesting categories here is for cinematography, because we have some nominees here. We have After Sun, Marina, Neptune's Frost, Pearl, and Tar. But there's two missing that I think are really interesting because there's been a lot of people saying, oh, these are Oscar contenders. These could get into the
Right.
Oscar 5. And that's Everything Everywhere, which you can take your case to why it's not here.
Really?
The one I think is
I
more
wouldn't-
interesting.
I wouldn't say Everything Everywhere is an Oscar contender in cinematography. I think
I
that's one of
wouldn't
the least
either.
exceptional.
I wouldn't either, but I've seen a lot of pundits have it in their like top 7, top 8 sort of thing.
That's
where I don't think it's in
wild.
the top 10 at all. But the one I think is most interesting that's not here, not because I have it in my 5 for the Oscar, but it's because of how many people are saying this is still getting a nomination, and that's Women Talking. You can say anything you want about this movie, people are still going to be like, the color grade looks weird. I love the color grade. We've talked about this on the show in prior episodes that you can go back and watch about why the color grade's there and what its use is. But as we see here, even with a smaller voting body for for indie films, it still doesn't crack the 5. And here they have 6 nominees. It still doesn't get in. And I think that just speaks louder to why Women Talking is not a screenplay, or not a screenplay, a cinematography contender this year.
Yeah.
Love it or hate it, it's just way too divisive. While here, I think it's pretty obvious what the winner is, but maybe I'm just blinded because by the Tar love I've seen across the board from people online. But a lot of people who love Tar love the cinematography. Pearl cinematography, I think, is I will get all the hate for this, the highlight of the movie. And then I haven't seen Marina or Neptune's Frost, and After Sun cinematography is fine to me. So maybe I'm biased due to my lack of love for some of the other movies here. But Tar seems like we can't give it some more above the line award. So let's give it this one.
This is actually one of the few categories here that I've seen every film from. And I agree with you. I think Tar's going to win, but I don't think it's open and shut. I think something else could sneak in here because I'm going to be honest. I think that the cinematography is one of the weakest parts of Tar. It looks very plain to me, but obviously that's not the case for everyone. A lot of people really love the look of this film. But I don't think it's a guarantee to win here, especially up against After Sun or Pearl, because Pearl looks spectacular. After Sun, I don't think looks absolutely incredible, but it has some very striking visuals in it. Marina and Neptune Frost are really inspired nominations here, but neither of them has a chance at winning just because of visibility. They're both very small films. They're a little bit hard to get through. They're not the most exciting movies out there, is what I'd say. But yeah, I think that this is a really inspired lineup. Even if I don't fully agree with all of the choices, I think it's really cool choices. Then we got Best Documentary, and I'm really happy to see some of these films show up because this is a good predictive category for the Oscars. So we have A House Made of Splinters, which is a pretty solid documentary about refugees in Ukraine. And specifically orphans in Ukraine right on the border. All That Breathes, which I'm so happy to see here because that so matters to getting a documentary nomination at the Oscars. All the Beauty and the Bloodshed. Midwives, which is, it played at Sundance. Haven't heard much about it since then. I think that's the one film here that you can kind of discount as like that's not really going anywhere. But then we got Riotsville, USA, which has great reactions. I can tell you firsthand that people working in the documentary field, people who are Oscar voters in documentary, have been talking about this film. I have that firsthand. The first time I heard about this movie was from an Academy documentary voter. So Riotsville, USA, this is one of the first times it's shown up in any of these awards nominations. But I think that this has a chance of making it into the 5, just like how a few years ago Hale County This Morning, This Evening did. So do not discount Riotsville, USA for a nomination. It could totally goddamn happen. But I think the winner here is going to be... It's a toss-up between All That Breathes and All the Beauty and the Bloodshed. What do you think, Dylan?
See, I think All That Breathes is like the film that shows up at every nomination but never wins. It just screams that type of documentary to me, where it's going to be very consistent throughout the season, but it's never going to reach like A Good Night Oppie and win, or in All the Beauty and the Bloodshed and win an award. However, I think Riotsville, USA could upset here and take the win, just because, like what you're saying, it's people are so passionate about it. There are people who are so passionate about All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, but there's also a lot of people who are on the other side who really just aren't connecting, aren't vibing with that movie, as we've seen it miss some of the nominations it sort of easily got in the season so far. While Riotsville, with it popping up here, clearly shows that at least some portion of this body loves it. Obviously, the voting body is a little bit different, but that voting body could really love it too. And that one could easily be the one like, okay, I see this list, that's one I love the most. Where if you see all the beauty and be like, that's really technically well made, but I don't know if I really love it. And all that brings is like, okay, this is good, but it's not my number one. Where I think Riot's Vote's gonna be the most common, like, number one answer out of these.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you've made there. Yeah, I don't know. All That Breathes, I would say don't completely count that one out because it is so beautifully made. It's so beautifully crafted, and it really is eye-popping. And I think that it could win here. Maybe not anywhere else, but it could win here in particular. And then let's move on to the best editing category. We've got After Sun, which is a great nomination. If there's one category that After Sun should be nominated in, it's this one. We've also got The Cathedral, Everything Ever All at Once, Marcel, The Shell with Shoes On. Such a weird nomination for that film, but I'm glad it showed up somewhere. And then we got Tar to wrap up that 5. And I think that this one's pretty obvious. It's Everything Ever All at Once right here. Feels pretty open and shut, but again, I think After Sun could upset. I think Tar could upset. I mean, Marcel the Shell, weird nomination. Glad it's here. Glad it showed up somewhere. But yeah, it's not winning this.
I think it's very interesting how 3 of these nominees are A24 out of the 5, and easily you probably could make a case for a 4th for a movie that got 0 nominations across the board. But yeah, Everything Everywhere gonna win this. Now let's dive into the final nominations for the Indie Spirits before we wrap up this part. And we have Corsage, we have Joyland, we have Lenore Will Never Die, Return to Seoul, and Saint Omer, which I think is a very interesting lineup because all these movies have gotten various reactions from positive to very, very, very negative, but none of these movies have gotten raves as in like this is my favorite of the year sort of thing. So I think this is a very interesting lineup where honestly I could see any of these winning. I don't think there's a clear number 1, and I don't think there's a clear number 5 at the moment.
Well, I mean, you said that there were no raves, but I would actually disagree, and I'd say that people have been raving about Saint Omer. It has like a 95 on Metacritic, but that said, I think it's a critics film and nothing more. I do not think that it can get the votes here because it is such a cold film. It's such a, I'm going to say it's a dull film. I found it really not engaging one bit. And 2, the film independent body, which is not the most sophisticated. I mean, they're not sophisticated, but like, they're going to vote Everything Ever All at Once. They typically vote things that are like, they don't always go for like the artsiest, fartsiest movie of the bunch, is what I mean. And that's why I think Joyland wins here. Joyland is, in many ways, kind of feels as though it could have been made by American independents. It's a very low-key, very sweet romance. And it also is embroiled in some controversy because the film was banned in Pakistan. So if that's the case, I mean, it's got controversy, it's got narrative, and it's the film that appeals to the voting body here the most. I think Joyland is winning this. And I also think it could get into the Oscars just based on this narrative as well. Overall, though, interesting that Close is missing here and Decision to Leave is missing here, both of which like probably should have shown up in this lineup for international film. I don't think Decision to Leave would have been too expensive. Close definitely isn't too expensive. So weird omissions for those 2 films. And I can say with certainty that whatever wins here is not winning the Oscar.
I fully agree. But for those people watching on YouTube, you'll find out why here in a few days. So definitely stay tuned. Subscribe if you're not already there. We have a new format that we're doing this week that we're going to have episodes out each day. So this is the first one. So some of you may be seeing this on Monday, or you may be seeing it on Tuesday, Wednesday. And within, we already have the other ones out, but we're going to have film reviews of Bones and All, Bardo, and Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, as well as a draft of all of Netflix's movies that are on there for your consideration page for this year's Oscars. And because this week is so packed with stuff to talk about, our predictions for some specific categories, but stay tuned to find out what those are.
Leave a comment below. What do you guys think is gonna win the Indie Spirit Awards this year? Is Everything Everywhere gonna sweep? Is it Tar's time to shine? Let us know what you think, and see you soon.